Have you ever looked around and wondered why some people seem to collect friends so easily, while others keep their circle painfully small? Maybe you've asked yourself this question in silence. Why do I only have a few real connections? Why do I feel drained in crowds? Why do I struggle to call people friends so quickly? And why does it sometimes feel like everyone else belongs somewhere except me? For a long time, society has trained us to believe that having lots of friends means you're likable, successful, emotionally healthy, and socially valuable. And if your circle is small, people assume something must be wrong. Maybe you're too quiet, too distant, too intense, too complicated, too hard to know. But what if that's not the truth at all? What if having fewer friends doesn't mean you're weaker? What if it means you operate at a level most people don't understand? What if the very thing that makes you seem different is actually the source of your power? Because here's the truth nobody talks about. Some of the strongest people you will ever meet are not the loudest in the room. They are not surrounded by attention. They are not constantly texting 10 different people at once. They are not trying to be liked by everyone. In fact, many of the most powerful people move quietly. They observe more than they speak. They connect deeply instead of widely. They do not need a crowd to feel complete, and because of that, they often look lonely from the outside, when in reality, they are incredibly strong on the inside. Power is often misunderstood. Most people think power looks like popularity, but real power often looks like self-control. Real power looks like emotional independence. Real power looks like knowing who deserves access to you and who doesn't. Real power looks like being able to stand alone without collapsing. And that kind of strength is rare. People with few friends are often forced to build parts of themselves that others never have to build. They learn how to sit with their own thoughts. They learn how to survive without constant validation. They learn how to read people more carefully. They learn how to protect their peace. They learn how to value depth over noise. That doesn't make them antisocial. It makes them selective. And selectivity is not a weakness. It is a form of intelligence. Think about it. Anyone can be surrounded by people. Anyone can have casual conversations. Anyone can chase attention. Anyone can confuse company with connection. But not everyone can handle silence. Not everyone can handle solitude. Not everyone can walk away from shallow relationships instead of settling for them. Not everyone has the discipline to wait for what is real. And that is why people with few friends are often more powerful than they appear. Because their power was not built in comfort. It was built in reflection, in disappointment, in solitude, in learning the hard way who is real and who is not. The world usually celebrates people who are easy to access. But powerful people are not always easy to access. Not because they think they're better than others, but because they've learned that energy is precious, time is precious, trust is precious, and not everyone deserves unlimited access to your mind, your emotions, and your peace. So if you've ever felt ashamed of having a small circle, let this be the moment you stop seeing it as a flaw. Maybe your life is not empty. Maybe it is simply protected. Maybe your circle is not small because you have less to offer. Maybe it is small because what you offer is too valuable to waste. And once you understand that, everything changes. Because having few friends is not always a sign of social failure. Sometimes, it is the first sign of personal power. One of the biggest reasons people with few friends are often more powerful is because they tend to develop a stronger relationship with themselves. And in today's world, that is a superpower. Most people are constantly surrounded by noise, notifications, conversations, opinions, drama, expectations, social pressure, endless distractions. They don't get much time to hear their own thoughts clearly. Their identity becomes shaped by the people around them. Their mood depends on how others respond to them. Their decisions become tied to approval. But when you have fewer people around you, something different happens. You are forced to face yourself. At first, that can feel uncomfortable, even painful. Silence has a way of revealing things we try to avoid. It shows us our insecurities, our fears, our wounds, our patterns. It leaves us alone with questions we can't escape. But if you stay there long enough, that silence starts doing something else. It starts building you. It teaches you how to think independently. It teaches you how to regulate your emotions without always leaning on others. It teaches you how to enjoy your own company. It teaches you how to listen to your intuition. And slowly, you stop becoming someone who needs constant reassurance just to feel okay. That is power. Because a person who can be alone without feeling empty is dangerous in the best possible way. They cannot be manipulated easily by loneliness. They cannot be controlled through rejection. They cannot be bought with cheap attention. They do not need to perform for acceptance. They become harder to break. And this is where many people misunderstand the quiet person. They see someone who spends time alone and assume that person is sad, withdrawn, or disconnected. But sometimes that person is simply grounded. Sometimes they are thinking deeply. Sometimes they are protecting their focus. Sometimes they are healing. Sometimes they are building a level of inner stability that noisy people never get the chance to build. People with few friends often become powerful because they learn to depend less on the outside world and more on their inner world. And once that happens, they become more difficult to shake. They don't panic every time someone leaves. They don't lose themselves trying to impress everyone. They don't need to be constantly included to feel worthy. They don't chase every invitation just to prove they belong. They know who they are when no one is clapping. And that kind of self-knowledge creates a quiet confidence that no crowd can give you. There is also another reason a small circle creates strength. It sharpens your ability to observe. When you are not constantly trying to entertain, impress, or keep up with everyone, you start noticing things other people miss. You notice the change in someone's tone. You notice inconsistency. You notice fake energy. You notice who only comes around when they need something. You notice who respects boundaries and who keeps pushing them. People with fewer friends often become excellent readers of character because they don't rush connection. They take their time. They watch. They listen. They sense. And in a world full of performance, observation becomes power. Because the person who sees clearly usually gets hurt less, chooses better, and reacts smarter. They may not be the most socially active person in the room, but often they are the most aware. And awareness is one of the highest forms of power a human being can have. A small circle can also increase discipline. When you are not constantly pulled into endless social obligations, random drama, superficial relationships, and unnecessary emotional chaos, you often have more energy for growth, more energy for learning, more energy for purpose, more energy for your goals. That is why some of the most focused people in the world keep their circle small. Not because they hate people, but because they understand distraction. They know every relationship costs something: time, attention, emotional energy, mental space, and if a connection is shallow, draining, or unstable, the cost becomes too high. Powerful people understand this instinctively. They do not confuse being available with being valuable. They do not confuse being known by many with being understood by a few. And they do not waste their best energy where it cannot grow. So if your circle is small, do not rush to expand it just because society tells you to. Ask a better question. Is your small circle weakening you? Or is it giving you the space to become someone stronger, wiser, and harder to distract? Because for many people, that is exactly what is happening. Their small circle is not limiting their life. It is refining it. There is a major difference between being socially surrounded and being truly connected. And powerful people understand that difference better than most. A lot of people have many friends, but very little loyalty. A lot of people have constant conversation, but almost no understanding. A lot of people are seen by many, but known by no one. That is why numbers can be deceiving. Having a large social circle can look impressive from the outside, but if those connections are shallow, unstable, or built on convenience, they do not create real strength. In fact, they often create emotional exhaustion, because shallow relationships require performance. You have to keep things light. You have to stay agreeable. You have to hide your depth. You have to keep playing the version of yourself that people find easy. But people with few friends are often tired of that game. They do not want to be everywhere. They do not want to be known by everyone. They do not want 100 meaningless interactions. They want something real. And reality is this: real connection is rare. It takes time to build trust. Now, let's be honest. Having few friends is not automatically a sign of strength. Sometimes it is wisdom. Sometimes it is growth. Sometimes it is self-respect. But sometimes it is fear. And this is the part many people avoid. There is a difference between protecting your peace and hiding behind your walls. There is a difference between being selective and being emotionally unavailable. There is a difference between loving solitude and using it to escape vulnerability. There is a difference between having standards and refusing to trust anyone at all. If your circle is small because you value depth, that can be powerful. But if your circle is small because you have been hurt so deeply that nobody can get close anymore, then your strength may also be carrying pain. And pain deserves honesty. Some people become independent because they were disappointed too many times. Some people become private because they learned openness was dangerous. Some people say I don't need anyone not because it is true, but because needing someone once cost them too much. So yes, a small circle can be a sign of power. But real power is not just the ability to survive alone. Real power is the ability to stay wise without becoming closed, to stay careful without becoming cold, to stay strong without losing softness, to protect your energy without refusing love, to learn from betrayal without making loneliness your permanent identity. That is true strength, because the goal is not to become untouchable. The goal is to become discerning. Untouchable people may look strong, but often they are just wounded. Discerning people are different. They can still love,